What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Twink Revolution. I'm Sam.
And I'm Gian.
How are you doing, Gian?
Oh, just wonderfully.
Is that because...
There's been some news out of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
A state I've definitely heard of before. Yeah, the young Senator Bernie Sanders, they've just called him for him.
Yeah, he won.
Yeah, he's the winner.
Yeah, because Daddy always wins.
Yeah, Daddy gets his way. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's like there's part of it is just sort of the genuine excitement that like, fuck, he might pull this one off, which you know is what I would like. The other part is just the sheer joy of watching liberals melt down.
Yeah.
Like, this is the moment they have feared since mid-2015.
Neera Tanden.
Neera Tanden, Joanne Reed is melting down. The shitty friends we all have on Facebook, they're all just going fucking nuclear, and it's making me so happy.
I basically unfollowed everyone on Facebook who posts political things.
I'm leaning in. I'm Sheryl Sandberging it, and I'm leaning into the sort of discomfort of the 2016 election cycle.
Yeah.
And this time I was like, no, you know what? I can cause more misery for those who are very, very invested in a project of sort of centrist liberalism than they can for me.
Mine's more I don't want to see political news from anyone on Facebook anymore. I'd rather just like be dicks to like people on Twitter because they actually know how to like have a like proper conversation and that's actually entertaining kind of way versus like a pedantic kind of like form of conversation on Facebook where it's just like, Black, I don't like you, you're mean, versus like you seem like creative nicknames like you're a bunch of stress right fascist Bernie bros and you hate all women and you're transphobic and
true, all true. Yeah.
Not POCs, despite being Italian and Slovenian.
I think we've given up too much ground. We've ceded the territory of the simple Bernie would have won. Actually, still is a great little zinger for somebody who is sort of over invested in Nancy Pelosi's clapping or shit like that. Then like, you know, just a simple like, you know what, we could have avoided all of this. We never wanted this future.
Yeah.
You gave us this through your steadfast support for Hillary Clinton, and so we're just going to keep relitigating 2016 over and over again until you admit that Bernie would have won.
They rejected Daddy, and as a result, they suffered the consequences. The like PMC class are like the like hot young girl who like defies their father and runs away, and then ends up in like street corner prostituting and comes back and it's like, Daddy, I was wrong. And that's basically what's happening right now.
That is a perfect metaphor. Coming crawling back to Daddy.
Yeah.
And also I think it's not just that Bernie would have won, it's that Bernie will win. That's the exciting prospect. That's what's got us sliding off our chairs around here.
Yeah. He's
so
looking pretty good. I mean,
he's looking good. He was looking bad. He was looking rough for a little bit. Turns out that, you know, having a heart attack or whatever really does sort of just do some things to your complexion.
We all need some self-improvement. Turns out I need a bunch of like teeth filled in, and Bernie needed like some stents.
Yeah. No, exactly. So practice excellent self-care, and look what you can do. You too can win the presidency if you just take that moment to be mindful.
Plus, people like Caroline Calloway, the Instagram's PMC are behind Bernie, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw that. That's kind of exciting for her.
Hot girls for Bernie has really become a thing.
Oh, wait. I love that for her.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Good.
Also, if you're a hot guy, she wants you to fuck her. So go sign up. Just kidding. No one wants
Is there a sign-up sheet somewhere?
Yeah, it's on Twitter.
Cool. I am delighted that, so there's sort of the two big camps right now, whereby there are those who are sort of reading the writing on the wall and saying, all right, time to get on board.
Yeah.
You know, I was skeptical. I was holding myself apart. I'm too cool to be in the Bernie crew because I'm busy, you know, trying to plug Kamala Harris still or something. And those people are getting on board now and like, cool, welcome. We are happy to see you. You know, your errors have been noted, but will be forgiven. Then there are the people who are like looking at a 9% result by Elizabeth Warren in New Hampshire and are like, fuck it, and going down with the ship.
Or they're like lying and telling people, actually, it doesn't matter if we don't win these states because we could still win the other states when it's like there's no evidence, and they're just kind of trying to like use a small little like Dixie cup in their like boat that's slowly sinking in the ocean. Or like
bailing
like
out,
it's okay, we're not drowning, we won't all freeze to death, and like they're already half frozen to death on the boat. Like
I'm not owned as I slowly shrink and turn into a corn cob.
Yeah.
As the infamous drill tweet goes. Yeah, no, I mean there's sort of an aspect of delusion that is becoming more and more entertaining. If you've ever sort of seen how some of this like statistical model fitting where they like try to fit a line through a set of data points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then election polling is famous for doing this. Sort of Nate Silver's whole shtick was 538. The closer you get to the event, or the more sort of extreme the results are, in terms of divergence from your model, you get some really silly results, and the lines just start sort of bending wildly one way or the other. And that's sort of what's happening in the brains of the kind of liberal consensus political pundit class right now. It's just a joy to see. You love to see it.
Yeah.
Really. It's nice to be on the winning team occasionally. Like it's not, if you're sort of on the left, right, you just sort of get used to getting your ass handed to you, and you're like, okay, this is fine.
Or you just get like comatosely drunk and just suffer and die alone in a cabin.
Yeah. I mean, good plan either way. But yeah, no, I pretty much blacked out in 2016 and just haven't really, like, I'm just coming back to consciousness now.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
How was sleep?
It was nice. It was nice to wake up now.
You look refreshed.
Thank you. That's I took some of Mark's beauty tips. So,
perfect. Did you get the like injections underneath your eyes?
No, not quite brave enough to invest in the needle thing.
Yeah,
I'm
me neither.
I don't. I kind of just have like a junky physique. I don't really have the like actual will to do needles.
It fits you.
Yeah, no, heroin chic is definitely my aesthetic.
You looking like super refreshed in the face would just kind of like tarnish your entire brand.
Yeah, it's sort of like Bride of Frankenstein chic, maybe more than
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't deal with not looking like gaunt Soviet agitprop.
Yeah.
How would people recognize me?
Yeah.
So Iowa was a shit show, and we didn't really talk about Iowa very much because we had cut in our interview with Mark last time, but apparently it has been officially declared by the DNC after their recount for animatronic Chuck E. Cheese character Peter Buttigieg. But what I thought was interesting is a lot of the media outlets, even the sort of consensus ones, are withholding their actual declaration of a winner.
Is it like the last like 3% or something like that they're still kind of like?
It's that there's fucked up election math on a lot of the worksheets. This is literally like crayons and fucking like placemats that they're using to do this election in Iowa apparently. And so
Bernie won.
Yeah, I mean he won the popular vote. Like and we don't really know who won all the delegate shit. We know how many delegates have been awarded right now. Some state delegates are still being argued over. Whether that will actually influence the number of national delegates, who knows? Doesn't really matter. Bernie won the popular vote by a very comfortable margin.
Yeah.
He was the people's choice. And so like, yeah, the machinations of the Iowa Democratic Party and of just like the silly caucus system is like, okay, whatever. We don't care. We don't need to like cry foul. We shall roll on to more victories like New Hampshire, where it's like, yep, clear cut victory. He won. Great.
Yeah. And it seems like the Warren campaign is kind of like in panic mode. Like I think the day after, a couple staffers in like the Nevada office just like got up and left with like a 70-person team. And it was all like women of color, basically calling out the like tokenization of them and like using them more as like diversity pieces versus like actually utilizing them as like people to give feedback and stuff.
That is disgusting. I mean, I can't believe they would go in for that sort of cheap tokenism. But actually, we've got our black friend here to tell us more about. Oh no, sorry, never mind. Yeah, no, I like. Of course, this campaign's tanking. Like the campaign's tanking all over the place, and it seems like the death rattle is has already happened in some ways, right? It's not just like electoral performance. It's that it all happened when Elizabeth Warren decided to start trying to triangulate to the center.
Yeah.
And equivocating on Medicare, and then just starting to do more and more bizarre shit in terms of like the, for one, the private conversation with Bernie that proved he was definitely a sexist.
Oh, but didn't you hear today? She was like, "We shouldn't be attacking each other. We need unity."
Well, that seemed like her throwing some shade at Bernie.
Yeah, 'cause she's a bitch.
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't.
Biden's a bitch too.
Not
Equality.
a good look. Yeah, not a good look. I think would be the parlance there. I thought it was interesting. Between like just pivoting from a campaign that was sort of Bernie light populism into just the most vulgar rendition of like Hillary 2016 liberalism. And like just vulgar identity, right? Where it's like, I am the woman candidate, and like Klobuchar's on stage looking awkward, like, hi, who the fuck am I? Or the
Tulsi's still in the campaign running.
Yeah, hell yeah, she is. Or the more outlandish one I thought, which was her being like, a black trans child told me that they didn't like Betsy DeVos, so I promised that black trans child. She says the phrase like black trans child like 18 times. And like, I will not appoint anybody to Secretary of Education unless it has the approval of this black trans child. Can you imagine if you sort of had just sort of blacked out in like, I don't know, 2016 and woke up? You'd be like, wait, what now?
I'd be like, someone put K in my system. Am I still like waking up from this slumber?
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like I smoked bath salts or something.
I feel like because so much of the Hillary and like Kamala camp have flooded to her campaign, instead of like learning from their mistakes, they just heightened this kind of like woke identitarianism, which Hillary had, but not to the extent Warren did, and even Kamala wasn't even as bad as him.
Oh no, Hillary had nothing else. But that's what's been forgotten, right? She just was so robotic that she couldn't even quite get the lines out in a convincing way.
But I think in the Warren case, it's even more outlandish than Hillary. Like they instead of being like, oh, we should do less of this and focus more on this like economics, we're going to do more of this and just talk about a population that's like 0.01% of like the American population for like 90% of the campaign.
Yeah, I don't know. It's it just feels vulgar, right? I mean, it's
gross.
It's yeah, and it's like not to diminish the concerns of trans children. It's more just like this is not a serious campaign at this point. This is fucking. It's a joke.
It's a Joshua for Congress.
Yeah, exactly. You've become a meme candidate. Like, fuck it. Like, just talk about golf courses instead. That's just as relevant in terms of like an urgent political issue. And in some sense, right? Like, honestly, even if this was the course she decided to take, and she's like, I'm going to consult with, trans kids about education issues. That's cool, but the fact that was her substantive answer in a time when she was in a town hall and essentially had the opportunity to articulate an education policy. And it's the same thing as when she decided to read the name of all the black trans women who were murdered during a debate, right? It's like, that's cool that you're showing concern for that. It's just completely meaningless.
And it's not genuine.
No, well, without even trying to interrogate her actual motives, it's just simply like, it's a non sequitur. Yeah, but you are talking about like, should you, Elizabeth Warren, Native American tribes person, should you have the reins of power? Should you have personally the power to decide who lives and who dies? Mm-hmm. And whether it's war and pestilence and famine or bounty for all, should you have that power? And how did she decide to sort of make that case?
A child.
Well, yeah, no, just like signaling to nobody in particular signaling to apparently about 9% of New Hampshire voters.
Yeah.
On whom this shit works. It's cynical, and like you even saw plenty of trans leftists going like, what is this, and who is this for, and why you're choosing to pander to us? This is not for us. This is for like white liberal wine moms to feel really good about their political choice to vote in their own class interest.
Yeah. Get like
Fucking sucks.
Get like Mickey Mouse or like Cinderella from Disneyland, like an impersonator to be like the education administrator.
Yeah, that will go down well with the 9-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, fucking hell.
Do you want this person of an actual background or a Disney princess? Well, the Disney princess, of course. Like, stop giving children political like control. Like, they're children. Let them go play at the playground and let them go like not worry about this shit. Like,
the children will not save us. Stop trying to make it a thing.
Like,
they're not going to save us.
And that's such a like gross mentality. It's like, oh, let's force these children to no longer be children and to worry about things they shouldn't have to worry about. Like, I don't want a 9-year-old trans child worrying about education. That's the parents' job. Stop being lazy fucks. Like,
yeah, do your goddamn job. Do some parenting.
Yeah. Slap them. No, I'm just kidding.
I just sort of try and think like the primary process in the U.S. is such a wonderfully messy beast.
Yeah.
Like, and there are just some sort of significant moments of like actual contention of political power. You know, the '68 Democratic Convention, led to riots. You can even look further back to like, I don't know, elections that sort of really changed the nation. As 1876, I think, it's like Rutherford B. Hayes versus Tilden, and Tilden won the Electoral College essentially, and then there was just a bunch of fraud, just out and out fraud.
Yeah.
And then Congress did an electoral commission, and along partisan lines, basically the Republicans decided they did not want to relinquish power, and they awarded the presidency to Rutherford B. Hayes. And then sort of contextualize all of that, right? This long struggle for power. People are like, it's just a fight down in the dirt, nails clawing at each other's eyes to figure out who lives and who dies, and who eats and who starves. And then you have Elizabeth Warren in her fucking cardigans, and they're going, I'm going to only select an education secretary based on this trans child. Fuck off. Good God. What kind of fucking parody is this bullshit? You could not make this shit up if you tried.
Yeah. At least Andrew Yang and Tom Steyer, is that his name?
Tom Steyer.
Dropped out.
Yep. Good work. Was it? Yeah. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's the response to Tom Steyer dropping out. Andrew Yang, what a complex character. He seemed very genuine.
He's fine.
No, I know that was not a statement. To say someone is genuine is not a statement of approval. Merely like he was not a robot.
Yeah, he was just like a giant fucking nerd who.
Yeah.
And
like a rich nerd.
Yeah.
And yeah, good on him. Good on him for thank you for participating. You get your Millennial Participation Award.
Yeah.
Try again next time.
That's what I don't get is like, if you're that rich, why would you want to do politics? That makes you look like
just
shit.
Go buy senators like a normal person.
Yeah, go on your island and never worry about anything ever again. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to be a president. I'm like, I'm going to go to the Caribbean.
Yeah,
like,
get on your plane with your other billionaire friends and a few politicians like Bill Clinton and a selection of the finest child prostitutes that money can buy, and just head off to your private island. Fuck it. Why are you involving yourself in this messy business? It's just demeaning.
I see where all this money is just going to like autism, like cure therapies and stuff for his child that he seemed to be so obsessed about.
I just assume like 95% of Andrew Yang's wealth has been spent on Funko Pops.
What are Funko Pops?
Those weird little like vinyl figurines.
Oh.
Yeah. I just a guess. I don't know that for sure. Like, this is, I don't want this to be libelous, but
yeah. Allegedly. No, I'm just kidding. Do you think he goes to Burning Man?
No.
Really?
No. No, like even of the crew that would take a helicopter into Burning Man, just to taste that sweet playa dust. I don't think he rolls with that crowd. I think he might go to Coachella.
I think that's worse, actually.
It is. It's absolutely worse.
For him, not for like everyone. If you're a regular person, I think
do whatever brings you joy. But no, I don't know. He doesn't even strike me as the kind of like tech/finance Burning Man shithead. He strikes me as much more like normie than that.
I don't know. He seems kind of aspy, but like in the sweetest way possible. Like
he's
kind of
endearing. I mean, I don't think there's anything really wrong with the guy, except he's promoting a sort of crypto libertarian, like incredibly bland program that we've seen before. But thankfully, he's not in the race anymore, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, so former Yang supporters, welcome to the movement.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah. I have nothing to say there. It's fine. Like, no, I mean, genuinely, like, I hope that some of those people who felt animated by his like concern for what automation and changing forces in the economy would do to working people, I hope they sort of look around and go, oh, wait a minute, like, is anybody else talking about like the plight of workers in a time of rising productivity and lower wages? It sounds like a certain senator from Vermont might have been talking about that shit for 40 or 50 years.
It's almost like he's offering you more than $1,000.
Yeah, but it's $1,000.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
But you can't spend healthcare insurance on ketamine.
I mean, or can you?
I don't know. I haven't read the policy.
Yeah. Well, so the State of the Union happened as well. Which
did you watch it?
No. I watched the GIFs afterwards, the reaction GIFs. Nancy Pelosi ripped up a speech.
Yeah.
It's really good. Yeah.
And everyone was like, yes.
I'm sideways clapping sarcastically at her ripping up the speech performance.
The speech was milquetoast from like what I've actually watched of it.
Didn't even care. I did not care. The flip side to me not giving a fuck about the impeachment trial, of which I watched none.
Yeah, I didn't care.
I didn't follow it. Didn't care. Knew what the outcome was going to be. The outcome was not guilty on all counts.
Yeah, because you're a sane person and you realize this is a complete scam and it's meaningless.
Well, you'd have to think, like, when was the last time that anything in the Senate got a 2/3 majority? Like, for anything.
I don't know.
Like, never. Like, they can't convict anybody of anything. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not a thing. And so to the extent that, that happened, that was a wonderful piece of theater, except that it wasn't even interesting.
It was a waste of 4 years.
Yeah, it was like Hamilton. It was like,
Well, Hamilton's still going on.
Yeah, the impeachment trial fucking ended. Thank fuck for that. So it's more like Cats. Sort of pointless, but everybody knew it was going to be pointless, and yet they went and sort of engaged in it anyway.
Yeah.
What an absurd piece of theater.
I think the funniest thing of this like State of the Union, like complete bore fest, was kind of not really covered a lot by the media, but they had special guests, Juan Guaido, the fake president of Venezuela, where he can't even get into Congress because people are so fucking like his own party was like, we're done with you, fed up with you.
Well, the self-declared president of Venezuela, but also it turns out he won the Iowa caucus, so that's really good news for him. He's actually president of Iowa now.
But like both, like Nancy was tweeting about like, oh, we're so excited, and so did Trump, and it's like all the people be like, they're so different, but it's like, no, these people are the exact same people. They support the same foreign policy and are gross neoliberal fuckheads. Like, but did you see that Juan Guaido is doing like a big tour? He was in like Spain like a week before this, and like he's going around like Europe and like Canada and like the US doing a tour, and are treating him as if he's the real president.
That rules.
And it's like
It's a state visit by Venezuela.
but like this guy has no power, and he's like going to like hang out with like Justin Trudeau and like
Oh, I'm shocked.
Spain's
and
like,
Nancy Pelosi. That photo op was glorious, where they're just sort of he's standing there, just looking very presidential, and she's standing there looking very Pelosi like, and it's just like could you find a more perfect pairing? This is like San Francisco's congressperson. She is she's the liberal hero of America. This is the resistance. And she's standing next to the guy that literally sort of just appointed by the Trump State Department to the presidency of Venezuela. And yeah, she's like, yeah, this is great. This guy, cool guy. Let me tear up the speech. Yeah.
Trump
Clap.
was like
Sideways clap, everyone. Do the Pelosi.
Trump was like, we're gonna not just stop at Venezuela, but we're gonna help free Cuba and Nicaragua as well. And it's like, yeah, because you're so effective. Like, and no one's talking about that, but they're all gonna, or even like how she voted for like his giant military budget and stuff. But she wrote paper, and that's so radical.
Hell yeah.
She should have ripped ass. That'd be funny.
It would be funnier.
It's like he'd be like, America. She's like,
yeah,
like,
that would actually be like a good sort of comedy bit, at least.
yeah. And then she'd have a stroke from all her plastic surgery, and like sees on a stage, is frothing from the mouth, like.
Yeah, see see all of this better State of the Union response than the one she gave, which was, yeah, just kind of sitting there.
God.
Did she applaud like a seal this time during the stupid lines again?
I don't know.
America will never be a socialist company. God, she sucks.
No, she got on her knees and blew everyone in the audience, but in like a respectful kind of way.
In a respecting the troops kind of way.
Yeah.
Good on her.
Speaking of
Sucking.
Jameela Jamil from The Good Place, which you've never watched.
I've never watched. Don't care. Not gonna watch it.
She came out as queer after people were upset that she was supposed to be on some like voguing show for
Yes, Legendary, I believe is the name of the show.
Legendary. And they were like, why is this person who has no connection and is straight being on this thing? And she does the worst response ever. Instead of saying, well, I'm just a judge, she's like, oh, well, I'm actually queer. I've never said it ever before until right now. Which is like every like progressive like PMC woman's role to feel like they're marginalized in any way.
Well, no, wait, we've actually got her exact statement here. It's I have a lot of respect and admiration for Anthony Rapp as an actor. I'm beyond horrified to hear his story. I honestly do not remember the encounter. It would have been over 30 years ago. But if I did behave as he then describes, I owe him the sincerest apology, and it would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior, and I'm sorry for this feeling he describes of having carried with him for all those years. I want to deal with this honestly and openly, and that starts with examining my own behavior, and I now choose to live as a gay man. Oh, wait, fuck. Sorry, that's Kevin Spacey. Sorry. Got this. Mixed those up. Yeah, no, she did the, like, people are mad at me online and I'm queer.
Yeah.
You can't be mad at me, I'm queer.
It's meaningless now.
Good
like,
on her.
literally. Like,
She might be. Who knows?
what the fuck does that mean anymore now?
I mean, Kevin Spacey is undoubtedly a gay man.
Yeah, well, at least that's telling us what, like,
Yeah,
marginality.
but I mean, like, it's a question of timing. It turns out when you're accused of sexual assault, and then you're like, oh, by the way, I'm a gay man. You can't be mad at me anymore. And then, you know, for Jameela Jamil, whatever, when people when there's a backlash and a news cycle going on, simply drop the like, well, I'm queer, so you can't be mad at me about this, as though it excused the thing people are mad about. I for one, I think it was all pretty silly. Honestly, if people are very, very animated by this, like, great, good on them. It's not me. But the idea that being queer is a complete answer to people being mad about, like, you have no connection to this specific ballroom subculture.
The show's gonna suck. It's gonna be like corporatized like ballroom shit, and it's
Of
gonna be
course it is.
bad.
But like whatever.
Like
And
that
this-
should be what you are mad about,
Yeah.
not like this like well-off like British chick who's like probably watched like one girl like on girl like porn scene is like, oh, I masturbated to this and now I'm a queer, and that's her idea of what queerness means. It's like, it's just hilarious. I mean, this person's done everything where it's like, it's where you kind of tie on like marginalization from other groups into like your cause to seem like you care. Like her whole film was like body positivity, and this chick's like, like if she's too pretty to care about like that, be the spokesperson for that cause. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, this is just like, this person is a brand.
I mean, I'm not going to talk about like fat, like discrimination as a like almost anorexic looking person. Like, it's like just like she has no margin, like there's no suffering or like consequences for her saying she's queer because it's almost meaningless.
Well, it simply means like not monolithically straight, perhaps, and like to the extent that I kind of think anybody can claim that, right? We can apply the sanity test here, which is like, I don't know, next time Bill Clinton gets caught in a sex scandal, if he turns around and sort of declares himself queer,
Yeah.
it would be just as meaningful, right? We would have just as much ability to sort of, like, for one, interrogate that claim, but also it would be just as much of a non sequitur to the issue at hand. Honestly, like, she could be like, Jameela Jamil can be a raging lesbian, but the point being that the specific intention was that like ballroom culture is a very specific subculture,
Yeah.
in primarily like African American and Latino sort of queer, like
Trans.
like queer and trans scenes, right? And like to the extent that you know, sucking dicks as a guy doesn't mean you know anything about ballroom culture.
Are you telling me you're not one of the judges, Gian?
They didn't invite me, actually, or actually, they did, but I respectfully declined, and then they asked Jameela Jamil.
Yeah.
She didn't have the good sense to decline. Like, I mean, no, I would be equally unequipped to be a judge on this show, because it turns out like being a homo is not sufficient qualification.
Yeah.
And if people were mad and they're like, wait, why did you pick a weird scrawny Italian guy to be this judge on this ballroom show? You would go, well, yeah, you'll find actually I'm gay, and therefore I will be accepting no follow-up questions. Anyway,
She's just really bad. Like, I remember like after the whole Ellen DeGeneres and Bush thing, she also like defended that, and then people were like talking about how bad Bush's legacy was, and she deleted her tweets and apologized. Like, she just talks out of her ass. And
delete your account.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really care about this person because I've never seen a television show she's been in.
She's like the like Indian British version of like Jonathan Van Ness.
Yeah, no, that checks out.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
But at least her show's good.
I don't know. Never grabbed me. Yeah, we're just gonna see more and more of this.
Totally.
Like we've already seen it, like in terms of like everyone wants to be marginal.
Well, every
It's fun to be marginal. Not just celebrities. I mean this is just the logical conclusion of it is leaking into like the press cycle. But it's like if the only way to have any sort of social currency is to be able to demonstrate a form of marginality, then like, yeah, of course everyone's going to claim one. They're going to claim anyone they can.
It's like vampirism. It's like these people are like sucking the blood of like actual groups and like communities that they don't have ties or any connection to, and probably never will. Like, this person's like does not function within these realms, and I think she has like a husband or like a boyfriend. Like, she's not part of that community, so it's just kind of like,
I'm sure she's really
nonsense.
expressed, it really suffered under all the oppression associated with her queer identity.
well, have you noticed like every year they have like the who came out in like 2019 and 2017, and it used to be like gays and lesbians and some trans people, and now it's almost like none of it anymore, and it's all like, I am sapiosexual, or I'm bisexual, or like I'm bi-curious or something. Like for every celebrity is no longer straight according to this logic, and it just like at a certain point it's completely useless because like it has no consequences for any of them, and they can just like turn it off and not have to suffer at all.
Well, it's the maybe it's a consequence of the sort of parasocial relationship we have with celebrity in terms of like these are just thoughts rattling around in your head now.
Yeah.
We have to hear about them. I'm reminded of Brett Anderson was a singer from Suede, sort of 90s Britpop band. And he sort of in a moment of exuberance was like, I'm bisexual, but I've never had a relationship with a man or never had a sexual experience with a man. And you're like, well, cool. That's, great. Good on you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You won a trophy?
But that was the 90s where that at least was edgy. The problem is everyone's literally making the same statement. But that's like, that does a press cycle and everyone goes, how brave. That they are truly in our community, a community that encompasses fully, 97% of people who have ever, interrogated their own sexuality and went, maybe this is a little complicated sometimes.
Yeah.
Wow. Great. Victory is ours.
But I think also like a broader point is, like you said, sexuality is extremely complex and variant, and often these labels don't adequately define everyone within their community, but they don't serve like a strict scientific definition. They're a political term, and they're exploiting political terms that have been utilized to create some sense of like collective action, which people are kind of seeping off and making it like extremely atomized and like no longer about this community, but instead I'm just this person. And it's like when like people are like Republicans and they're gay and they're like, I'm gay, but I'm not part of that community. And it's like, well, then it's completely useless because there's no way to like adequately represent you. Like,
well, I just hope she misspoke and was just trying to use like queer as a slur.
That'd be better.
Yeah, she's like, all right, Jameela Jamil is a goddamn queer.
They were like, why did you just? She's like, shut up, you fucking queers. And they were like, oh, what was that? Oh, I'm queer.
Yeah. Next she'd be like, yeah, I'm a faggot.
Yeah.
What do you say? Sorry, what was that? Sorry.
And then we're going to see a giant blackface scandal where she did like 40 movies in like Kazakhstan where she like does a blackface character.
Hell yeah. Can't wait. So I have to, and for the lead into this, I have to take a big deep breath, big drink here. Sam sent me an article last night, and it had the enticing title, "The Nuclear Family Was a Mistake" in the Atlantic. And for context, I read it, and I didn't look at the author at all. But I found two things, and I, for one, was like, this is kind of interesting. The writing was really annoying. It was a very, very, very poorly written article.
What's in the Atlantic?
Yeah, well, but it was the funny thing is it was a specific style of bad writing that I was like, this is familiar, oddly enough. And then I scrolled back to the top, eventually having finished this just epically long article, and it was David fucking Brooks. Just the smoothest brain in political punditry. He's not a single ridge on that brain. So yeah, this is this article. What did you want to talk about this, Sam? What was interesting about it?
It was interesting. Well, you want to explain who David Brooks is first?
No, I think I've said
No?
he's just like the libbiest lib that ever lived.
Yeah.
He just sort of does this sort of nostalgia for a bygone era, but filtered through sort of modern, like centrist expectations.
Uh-huh.
So it's just centrism, like the blandest form of centrism. So I can give a brief description of this if you can recall the details, because I've just gone numb even thinking about this article again. He's sort of plotting the decline of the American family through history, and he starts off with sort of
changes, and then
So he starts off with the corporate family, as it's sort of described as, sort of 1800s frontier America, where it'd be like, some sort of owner, and then all their servants, and maybe their slaves, and some sort of extended family grouping that sort of held together as a functional unit. and then the decline of that as people moved off farms into a kind of extended family model or sort of cohabitation and multi-generational households and things like that. And then eventually the decline of that further into the nuclear family in the 50s that sort of lasted for like 15 whole years before it sort of just started breaking apart. And it turns out the shit can't hold together.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think he
You skipped over some of the stuff. That's okay.
Well, please fill it in. As I said,
it's fine.
It's just mind-numbing.
It's
so long. This article is like 1,000 times longer than it needs to be. It is not making any great profound point, but he cannot get to the fucking point. That's why the writing is so annoying. It's incredibly florid writing, and then it doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So the kind of the things to which he credits this decline, right? And I think he does a good job of laying out the case of why this is bad.
I think he does a really good job of kind of doing historical changes, but when we get to conclusions or like solutions, it's when his like lib brain kind of like melts.
Well,
and
but
even
causes.
Even some of his analysis of like the causation.
No, I think he fucks that up. I mean, so put it this way, I think the thing he kind of tortuously lays out the case for why this has been bad. And there are many reasons, right? It's both the sort of like the kind of personal, like social alienation.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't use the word alienation even once in this article. It might be a useful term, but he's talking about alienation effectively.
He says isolation a lot.
Yeah, he says isolation.
He talks about the
loneliness.
I'll stick to the more modern stuff because the other stuff doesn't really matter as much, but the kind of 70s period, which he doesn't really talk about how it was a neoliberal period, but more about the sexual revolution of the 70s kind of shifted this idea of like sexuality and like marriage and like family from like deep connection beyond just like romantic or like sexual to a point where it's highly self-interested and like atomized, which I think he's right in that regard.
Oh, see, I hated that.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, no, I fucking hated it. And here's why. It's only that like it's doing the classic trick of attributing the individualism to nothing particular, right? Just sort of suggesting that's just sort of a force of nature that people became more atomized and individualistic. And then saying, well, and then the family unit, the nuclear family particularly, couldn't stand up to that greater individualism and, women leaving the home and enjoying greater personal choice and freedom, but therefore not doing all the domestic labor that was really sort of holding the house together or whatever. And it's like, no, all of these are proximate causes. Like this, the individualism is a consequence.
Yeah.
It's all superstructure, right? The big change that like he just never plots is how have we kept perpetual growth going through the entire 20th century?
Yeah.
We did it like so women entering the workforce was a good way to keep growth going. World War II, good. Then women entering the workforce, then like debt, the invention of consumer debt, and then like the internet revolution.
Yeah.
And we've managed to sort of just leap from lily pad to lily pad in terms of like shit that will keep the economy growing at all costs and avoid the contradictions in capitalism. Some says as long as everything's growing. Well, yeah, like so it turns out the American family has gone on this journey with the productive forces in society, and that our social relations are defined in terms of our relationship to productive forces. He talks about like what it meant when everyone lived on farms.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, of course our family structures would reflect the fact that we all live on farms and our relationship to productive forces is like that of laborers on farm. We have these big extended families that are required to do the production. So now we all work bullshit jobs where labor units that are sort of completely atomized and move around, are sort of just moved around like chess pieces on the board that are completely interchangeable. Like, yeah, no fucking duh that our social relations are rather affected by that. And he just never gets to that point.
Yeah.
He actually kind of makes the opposite point. He suggests that our lives are so barren and empty because the family is dissolved, not the family is empty because our lives have been so thoroughly sucked dry of meaning by our relationship to capital.
Well, I think the isolation, though, what she kind of talks about is a consequence of capital. Like, we rely on community and some sort of like collective interaction, and that's been destroyed via the changes via economic policy.
Yeah, well, and,
I mean,
he does a good job of plotting that, the damage.
He even critiques like the Reagan administration because he thinks there's issues within just like cutting all the welfare programs, because he actually talks about some things like parental leave and stuff like that as like policies that could possibly alleviate. I mean,
Yeah.
his solutions, I think, reading it, because I didn't realize who it was initially, and then when I reflected back onto it after reading it in a more like intense way, I was like, this person should, if they actually care about what they're talking about, support a candidate like Bernard Sanders. And I mean that in the most honest way possible, because the reason family structures are so pressured and having to like children have to go to like across the country for jobs is because of like our like rampant shitty capitalist system. And Bernie Sanders wants to kind of like at least make it manageable to a certain extent.
Yeah, you would have to. So he does credit to some extent the role of economics in some of this, but just like always as sort of like among other factors, economics might play a role. But he's always still crediting like the changes that are happening inside people's heads, as though we all just decided collectively to be insane in the same way at the same moment or something. And it's like, yeah, it's the kind of like individualized explanation for, you know, like the social harms he plots are real, I think, right? Like he does a good job of talking about like, yeah, that elder loneliness, for example. He talks about like the high percentage of people. I can't remember. I think the stat is he's a lot of stats packed in here. It's like people Americans over 45 who don't have any close relatives.
Yeah,
like it's incredibly high, and that has all sorts of hideous effects. And the number of children raised without a parental figure, effectively, it's like very high. All these things are really bad, and it turns out like multi-generational families or large extended families or all these sort of other familial structures are really good at filling those gaps.
Yeah,
and yeah, he makes an entirely valid point that without those structures, if it's just a nuclear family, there's no resilience. If you lose one parent through, you know, divorce or death or anything, or simply to the workforce, he doesn't make that point, but simply to labor.
Well, he does. He mentions how mothers, this idea of like women going to the workforce and having it all, but they're actually statistically, women are still doing the majority of like home care.
Yeah.
So they're coming home after working and are getting more stressed, and that creates tensions in relationships. Like,
of course.
So he does touch on that point of like,
sure. I mean, labor outside the home, to the extent that like these are all the things that would deprive you of that kind of resilience to loss of a parental figure or carers in your life, right? Younger or older or whatever, or just even sort of tight familial relations or close relations. That clearly an extended family structure where like blood relations are less important. There's all sorts of, you know, other people to fill the gaps. You know, somebody's sick, somebody can take care of them. You know, somebody has an appointment, somebody else can pick up the kids from school, whatever it is. And like, cool, yeah, that's entirely coherent. And I think like everyone, except for a very specific like antinatalist sect of people who are busy engaged in sort of fuck you dad politics can relate to. It's just his diagnosis is bonkers.
Yeah, but I think the upside is it does do a good job of like at least grasping from like the more like interpersonal like idea of like how family have changed. Because I think reading it, I kind of connected to the way of how, like in the beginning, it talks about this movie, which is like based on this guy's Avalon, and how it starts off like this family and they're having Thanksgiving and it's all very close. And as time goes on, people have to move away, or it's like it becomes more like alienated to the point where like these ideas of like family and like traditions and stuff completely just wither away. And I think like for me, like I'm not that old. Like I completely remember seeing like as like older people moved or like had to move because of like the economic downturn or it just kind of all just became less meaningful. And I
Yeah.
think it's brought a greater disservice. And that's why I wanted to talk about it because at least he is willing to bring up the idea of like familial issues, which the Democrats haven't, or like libs or even like the left basically completely ignore. And in the right wing do like this really lame, like outdated, like, oh, nuclear family, which is also like kind of stupid as shit.
Right. Well, they're hearkening back to a very specific and contingent era of like, mother is at home, father is at work earning the money, and your 2.5 perfect white children are, playing in the study, in your enormous palatial home that you paid $3 for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course that's and it's tied up, of course, with like religion and a sort of particular
Totally.
vision of American happiness.
But also it ties in a lot to, which I think he points out well, is like this progressive like narrative of like, he points out rightfully so, this highly individualized sense of like self versus like community or like collective. And you see it nowadays where people are like, oh, I'm no longer talking to my grandparents because they have this bad view on a thing they have no control over, or like they've supported this person, or I don't know. They said like they say some
They did a
stupid
slur.
shit.
They did a slur. They did a no growth.
And I think the left, if it wants to actually build a base, a broader base, we need to start having conversations around these issues because they do have an actual effect. I mean, they're tied in with economics, but like the amount of like lonely old people is like has something to do with like the way family has changed, and the same with like there's a really good story in there of this woman, and she gets shot in the face by two young kids who are trying to get into a gang, and it's, like I think she realizes for them the kids didn't do it because they hated her or anything. She was the random person, but like they're so deprived of any sense of like connection or like family that they'll do anything to get that relation because the family's been destroyed via like mass incarceration and like plummeting and denying wealth to these communities, and these people's only chance of having any sense of stability or like security is like gains in like urban centers or
becoming super predators,
or just like having
the super predator community,
or just ended up in like foster care networks or stuff.
Yeah.
Well, none of these are good options.
No, it's horrible.
So we need to. I mean, family is a huge component of a lot of these issues that.
Well, so David Brooks's solutions, so having flubbed the diagnosis, I think done a decent job of actually talking about the consequences of the problem, but completely misunderstanding the reason for the problem. He then moves on to some solutions.
Yeah.
And he kind of invokes the idea of like chosen family, mentions, sort of LGBTQIA plus community, like notions of chosen family as sort of a model where you can sort of, choose other ways. And then there's just the most sublime and surreal moment in it all, where it wouldn't be a David Brooks article if it didn't have a moment of techno-dystopianism, where he talks about like, there's an app where you can find, community, or like where mothers can find children to need parenting or something. He's basically just saying apps. Apps will save us all. It's just, there's an app for that. And he does talk about some other examples of like blended communities and like community structures, which is cool and like good.
But like none of that really matters unless you have the proper policy to ensure this is achievable for the group. Because he talks a lot about how the nuclear family is suitable for those of means, but for the vast majority of working class people, it's no longer a viable option. But he never mentions how we can make them viable besides just like building a housing. But if you can't afford the housing, or like in Wisconsin, like they're not building this fucking housing there. It's like primarily in like a few cities like Oakland and like maybe like LA and like New York and stuff. Maybe they are building in Wisconsin. I have no idea, but it's not really meaningful if like, you're not.
You mean, sorry, so he talks about these sort of like emergence of these new homes, which are designed to accommodate like groups of, group home situations or like multi-generational families with more privacy and things.
Yeah, like there's the model, which I've seen booming in like Scandinavian countries of like families living in like kind of like an apartment complex, but they have a communal kitchen and like twice a week families take turns creating meals and different people to have connections for like taking care of the children and the grandparents and like stuff. So it's kind of like builds that community.
Yeah, it sounds like hell.
But I mean,
kidding. No, I mean it's perfectly nice.
It's nice, yeah.
And that's the thing is like, it turns out if you want to sort of build a popular left program, you should start from the premise that people actually quite like family. Like it's actually most people pro their own family and would like to usually be able to have more time with them on their own terms or be able to care for parents or children or all these things are like actually good things in people's lives that they mostly enjoy.
Yeah.
But David Brooks fucking sucks because he can't get to the fact that like the only thing that people will do this by themselves. People need no particular encouragement to do these things and to form deep, close connections with other humans. They just literally cannot, given our relationship to capital. It cannot be done.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, for one, I was not going to choose an article about like a socialist because that'd be boring as shit to like commentate on.
Yeah, plus we've already talked about the Great British Bake Off enough, I think.
There is no like leftist for the most part. It's maybe like Zizek or something that talk about these ideas of like family and like community because they're so viewed as right wing in like the liberal, even left context. I mean, I think it was like a few years ago, someone got like blasted for writing an article saying it's okay to have children or something like that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was not that long ago. That was the weird.
Like that's crazy. Yeah. Like the left has been interjected with like anarcho primitivism, green anarchism. And they're just like completely against wealth and like having lots of children. Like people want to have lots of kids. Like in college, I remember lots of girls being like, oh, if I could, I'd be a stay-at-home mom. And they can't. Yeah. Like same for men, like gay men.
Well,
like,
in Silicon Valley, what you actually see is interesting is we live in an area with a lot of incredibly excessive wealth. And you'll see plenty of men who have kind of quote unquote made it. Mm-hmm. They've cashed out of a tech company. They're stay-at-home dads, and they fucking love it.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone.
It's a thing. It's a thing people are very, like, it's very rare that people are not like, gee, I wish I could spend less time with my family.
Yeah, well, I think it's changing. I mean, still, there's a stigma of being a stay-at-home wife or, like, even husband. I would say more for women because we've so inbred in, like, feminism, which is, like, deeply rooted in, like, liberalism of, like, it's liberating to go into the workforce, and it's like no one should have to be forced into the workforce. Like,
but that narrative was not, that was a post hoc justification for a social necessity, as in, we in order for our sort of unfettered growth of profits to continue, we needed new sources of labor, and so we started, yes, women's liberation, good thing.
Totally.
But the actual economic forces that sort of prefigured it and required it and has continued to make it a requirement are absolutely fucking hideous.
But it's like vulgar in the sense that the whole point of life was like, oh, to create greater choices for women to do what they want and like men as well, I guess.
They can do what they want.
But it's not true. We have an immense amount of stigma around stay-at-home parents. Like even like children living with their parents has been highly stigmatized primarily by like the much older crowd who grew up with this like nuclear family in like the 50s. But like,
well, they could buy 3 houses with like their pocket change.
But like anywhere else in the world, that's completely normal to be like living with your parents till you're like mid-20s until you're like married or something. Like,
but this is the point, I think, and this is sort of where I think David Brooks misses the mark is that plenty of people actually would be fine with that arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and plenty of parents would be very happy to play host to their children.
Yeah.
But many can't. It's not actually economically possible for them to do so, or their children have to move across the country, or if you have elderly parents who might need taking care of, most people, aside from maybe the like day-to-day logistics of it being a bit of a grind and the loss of privacy or whatever, and your in-laws being a pain in the ass or whatever, it's still like it's just not something many people can do. We move across states and across the world to basically seek minimally reasonable employment, and therefore often we live away from family. Everyone is sort of forced to go live one very specific kind of life, which is a sort of individualized, atomistic one, just to survive. And yeah, of course, familial structures don't survive that pressure. How could they?
Totally. I mean, my family's had like my grandparents and my sister live in the house for like a couple years. I mean, the house is not designed for that many people to live in it. But like, I guess what's saying is like, if we created housing systems or structures to allow that, it'd be manageable. But like he repeats throughout it, people still want a certain level of privacy. And when you live such close quarters with lots of family, that's kind of completely gone. And it drives you crazy. Like,
it kind of cuts off into your jerking off time.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good issue to talk about, and he gets to a lot of points, but dismisses it for the ball, and the left needs to start talking about it.
Good premise, bad execution. 2 out of 10 points, David Brooks. But yeah, good issue.
Yeah.
We will link it in the description for the show. Anyway, that's, I think, about all we have time for.
That is. Bye, guys.
Cool. Bye.